You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. Welcome to Dolphins Talk Weekly, your one-stop audio breakdown of all of this week's Miami Dolphins news. Now, here is your host, Kevin Dern.
Well, good evening, Dolphins fans, and happy, we'll call it Victory Thursday, as I finally record the recap of the Dolphins' thrilling 36-34 Week 1 win over the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm your host, Kevin Dern, and welcome to another episode of Dolphins Talk Weekly. You can follow me on Twitter at KevinMD4, and you can follow the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts. I do apologize for getting this episode out a little bit late. On Friday, I was assigned a big project for the new job at work and have had to spend a couple late nights working on that. But that is done. Project is good, and we are ready to talk some Miami Dolphins football. And as promised, since the Dolphins won, I have here in my hand, you can't see, but a glass of the Lagavulin 11 Nick Offerman Charred Cask Edition. I think I've talked about this one for 2 or 3 episodes now, but it's finally here. We'll have our Victory Monday sip on a Thursday evening. And as you'd expect from Lagavulin, that's damn good stuff. 4.9 out of 5. Just knocked it out of the park. If you like Guinness, you're going to get a little bit of that. The char flavor really comes through. Extra smoky on the Lagavulin. Chef's kiss from me. Highly recommend that. I think that was actually the first sip out of that bottle. Once we get through that one, we will switch to our Lagavulin 12. And then, depending on how quickly these victories add up, we've got Lagavulin 16 on the table at the bar right now as well. But that does it for the whiskey segment. Smoky, classic Lagavulin, a little bit of the Guinness flavor, some extra smoke and char for it. If you like that, like I do, that's a damn good bottle. 4.9 out of 5. Now, the Chargers recap is the first thing we're going to talk about. Then we're going to get into a preview of the matchup on Sunday Night Football against the New England Patriots. So, let's dive into it. And the man of the hour, the man of the game, the player of the week in the AFC on the offensive side of the ball, Tua Tagovailoa. And who knew? His middle name is just Donnie. I mean, pretty classic to his parents for that one. But as I talked about, all the reports that I had gotten from OTAs, minicamp, training camp were just Tua's Tua. And on Sunday, Tua was Tua. Phenomenal performance, 466 yards, 3 touchdowns, wasn't sacked. He had the 1 interception. We'll touch on that here in a minute. But I think the thing that stood out most for me, and I haven't had a chance to do an all-22 breakdown on any of this or the Patriots yet, so we're just kind of going off of what I saw on the TV copy. But he did a brilliant job of maneuvering in the pocket and especially stepping up in the pocket. There's a great example of a way to contrast that from Brian Baldinger. He has a clip of Russell Wilson in the Raiders game against a 3-man rush where his initial read isn't open. He's got Cortland Sutton coming across the goal line wide open. And instead of stepping up into the pocket where he could basically just kind of underhand toss it to Sutton, Russell Wilson bails out of the pocket like 19 yards to, his 4 o'clock, if he were a clock face, and throws it out of bounds. It's a terrible play. Tua sitting there, 3rd and 10, 4th quarter, down 4, steps up in the pocket when he gets some pressure from Khalil Mack and fires a 45-yard laser to Tyreek Hill. Just a sensational play. And he had some sensational throws aside from that one. If you haven't yet, do yourself the favor and watch JT O'Sullivan's QB School episode on Tua. It's like 35-40 minutes long. It's incredible. The one thing I would nit about Tua's performance, and this is something that JT O'Sullivan talks about in his episode on the show, really two plays in my mind kind of stand out where this kind of crept up. There was one deep shot, I believe, to Tyreek Hill in the first quarter that was underthrown, and then it happens on the interception to Braxton Berrios. And JT O'Sullivan pointed it out. There's a lot of eye candy, and we had talked about this in the podcast, why I wasn't that worried about the offensive line, because some of this is baked into the plays. But there's a lot of eye candy in terms of not just the motions, but once Tua has the ball, or he's reached the top of his drop if he's coming from under center, there's a lot of quick fakes where he's going to look one way and even his progression is going to take him back another, or they're going to fake like a smoke screen or a now route and then go back down the field. A lot going on. And if you notice on the deep ball that he underthrew to Tyreek that was almost picked, and on the fade pass to Braxton Berrios that was picked, if you look at his feet, and if you think of Tua as a clock, as a left-handed quarterback, and both of these throws are to the left, you want your feet set and aiming to the left. So he ought to be aiming at 10 or 11 o'clock on a clock face. If you notice, both of these throws, his feet are open to the right. They're open more towards 12:30, 1 o'clock, and he's throwing across his body. So if you look on the throw to Tyreek, he doesn't have the juice because he's stepping away from where he's throwing it. And then if you look at the end zone angle that JT O'Sullivan has in his breakdown of the QB school, I think he realizes that Tua sees the defense and they rotate the backside safety down because I believe it's Durham Smythe goes across the formation in motion on the play. It's either Durham or Tyreek. The safety rotates down away, so he knows he's got one-on-one coverage with Berrios and J.C. Jackson. The problem is there's a fake to the right, so like to Tua's 3 o'clock, and then the throw is back. It should be more towards Tua's 10 o'clock, but his feet are set more towards 1 o'clock. And if you look in the end zone, the word Chargers, the word mark logo is out there. Tua's ball kind of gets thrown towards the top of the H when it should be thrown to sort of the outside of the C in the word Chargers, where Berrios could go get it. So just one little thing with the footwork, and we've kind of known that that's happened to him before, but that's the one nit I have from that game. His ability to throw with touch, his ability to lead receivers, his ability to throw deep, his touch on underneath routes, his ability to maneuver laterally within the pocket, his maneuverability vertically in the pocket, sensational. Best quarterback in the league from week 1. Hands down. You're not going to find anybody better. You just aren't. Sensational performance. Same goes for Tyreek Hill. I don't know what you can say. I forget which podcast it was, but Hall of Famer Charles Woodson was a guest, and he had said basically there's not a single defensive back, not a single corner in the NFL for any team that can cover Tyreek Hill one-on-one and stop him. I think it might have been the Rich Eisen show. Just sensational from him. Waddle, kind of much the same. Didn't get as many targets, still dealing with the oblique injury. But love the way that they mixed in guys like Durham Smythe, River Craycraft, Braxton Berrios. I think I saw that other than Hill, there were like 3 other receivers with at least 40 yards in that game. And you can just kind of imagine what else is left on the play sheet menu. There's going to be ways to get Eric Ezukama involved other than handing him the ball in the run game, which worked twice for the Dolphins. I think he had 2 runs for almost 20 yards. And now we've gotten the news that Ezukama is practicing some of the plays and looks that Deebo Samuel ran in San Francisco. That's intriguing to me. Also intriguing that on the game-winning touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill, the fade over, not J.C. Jackson, but the taller guy, number 43, Davis. Eric Ezekama was in the backfield with Tua, not a running back, but Eric Ezekama. So something to keep your eye on with him. A little bit more of an expanded role than even I imagined Eric Ezekama would have, and I picked him on another show to be sort of my breakthrough offensive performer for this year. I thought the run game was efficient. It did well. It did what it was asked to do. Most of that is Raheem Mostert. Thought he was efficient. I think his yards per carry average is a little bit low just because you had the short touchdown run. And I think there was one other play where he got stuffed for like a 3-yard loss that kind of drove it down. But thought they were efficient. Intrigued to see what they continue to do with him and Savon Ahmed. And you cannot say enough about the offensive line. We'll start here with the snaps. I know everyone's favorite whipping boy is Connor Williams, because I see it on Twitter all the time. 3 bad snaps in the game. And I'm not just blaming him, I'm blaming Tua as well. You have the first play of the game where the Chargers jump offside. It's a dead ball. I think Tua was starting to pull out from under center when the ball got snapped, so that's the fumble. Really no one's fault other than they didn't stop the play soon enough. The one on the goal line, that's an under center exchange. That's typically on the quarterback, and then you had the other one where the ball was a little low, but that's not egregious. So again, I wouldn't put any of them solely on Connor Williams. Maybe the low shotgun snap falls a little on him, but that's still right at Tua, just kind of taking his eye off the ball. And Connor was sensational blocking in the game. So I think those that, come to bear with issues with umbrage with his snapping ability just need to give it a rest. It's tiresome. It wasn't an issue last year. It's probably not going to be an issue this year. It just is what it is. They're not going to be the cleanest snaps week in, week out. But within the structure of the offense and within how the plays work, they are higher level difficulty snaps given all the movement that you see from the offensive line. And for the most part, 99.95% of the time, it's pretty efficient. And the times that it's not, Tua is normally a good enough athlete to handle those snaps and make it work. So I would be absolutely floored to see them replace Connor Williams at center, unless it was for an injury. I think also giving due credit, Austin Jackson, I won't say it was picture perfect, but was pretty good. And that was kind of what we thought we were getting out of Austin Jackson way back in 2020, his rookie year, through those first 4 games when he was the only first-round tackle that didn't give up a sack in that first month of the season. His hand usage, in particular, has improved. I think we're still in way too small of a sample size to call it good, but certainly better than we saw last year or the year before. And when you're holding guys like Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack without a sack, you're doing something right. Very impressive job. Kendall Lamb, kind of based on the New England game and what we saw in the preseason, we thought would do all right. Austin Jackson, I think, was probably the main concern in the eyes of most Dolphins. And I would say through week 1, he exceeded expectations. I don't know that there's another way to put it. Robert Hunt did what he does. Isaiah Wynn looked pretty effective at left guard. Still don't know why he missed the 1 snap. Could have been an equipment issue or something like that Liam Eichenberg played, but Wynn came right back into the game. And it sounds like they'll get a little bit of a boost with Teron Armstead this Sunday. So stay tuned for more on that. The defensive side of the ball. Talked about this in the week leading up to the game. kind of the strategy was don't let Herbert beat you through the air. We thought the run defense would kind of take care of itself. But in the 4 performances Justin Herbert had versus Vic Fangio, he averaged a completion and attempt ratio of 25 of 38, which is good for 67%. Averaged 268 yards a game, 7.1 yards an attempt, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick. And I thought that if Miami were able to hold him under those thresholds, they'd have a good chance to win the game. And Miami did that, except for one, which was the completion attempt ratio. He was 23 of 33, which is 69%. So he had 2% higher than his normal rate, but was 229 yards below average, so saved about a drive's worth of yardage. 6.9 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Sacked him 3 times. I believe in both of the Chargers' wins over Fangio's Broncos, he did not get sacked once, or maybe once total in the 2 games combined. So good on Miami there. I thought they did a really nice job in the secondary. Again, I have not seen the All-22, so I can't tell you which coverages they ran, but not a whole lot available downfield. You know, we saw the one play where David Long had Keenan Allen. I'd have to look at All-22 to kind of figure out why was that the matchup. And then there was one big play where Jerome Baker didn't get enough depth in his drop, and when you have a taller quarterback like Herbert or, anyone who's really 6'4" or taller than that, you can kind of get the ball up and down on a rope over a linebacker like that in for a big gain. Herbert did. But aside from those 2 plays, a lot of it was taking short stuff and check downs and screens, and never gave up that big play over the top the way that the Dolphins did last year in that Sunday night game. Now, while the pass defense held up its end of the bargain, the Dolphins' run defense, which was 4th in the NFL last year, is dead last. They were completely outclassed by the Chargers' ground game, and again, just based on the TV copy, they were out-schemed. They made sure they didn't get beat over the top, so you're sacrificing a little bit of help in terms of run defense by not having a safety down in the box. In this defense, you're playing a gap and a half, which requires your off-ball linebackers to basically play off that and play off of it quickly, instinctively. And Jerome Baker and Andrew Van Ginkel, for the most part, were pretty awful. I do not buy for a second Vic Fangio's explanation of him being the starter in nickel and David Long being the starter in base. That is absurd. It should be the other way around. If anything, take Jerome Baker off the field if you're going to keep David Long off the field for Andrew Van Ginkel. That sounds like a mess waiting to happen if you're trying to keep the Van Ginkel off-ball linebacker experiment going. They tried later in the game to try and insert him into some of the gaps and kind of run blitz, and there were maybe 2 snaps where it was effective. But that's not going to work. It's just not. You need David Long on the field. I don't care what he may or may not know about the playbook or what Anthony Campanelli thinks about him. There's no reason to be that bad against the run. And I think, by and large, the majority of this is the fault of the off-ball linebackers. There are certain plays where you saw some of the edge guys get pinned. Jalen Phillips didn't have a great day against the run. Had a pretty good day against the pass. Wilkins and Sealer were able to get off double teams and cause some disruption, but it didn't matter because the linebackers weren't filling where they were supposed to. And then I think on top of it, you were so worried about Herbert and the deep ball, especially without Jalen Ramsey, and having a shorter corner like Kader Kohu against that basketball team of receivers the Chargers have, there really wasn't a lot of cover 9, which is what Fangio, he calls cover 3, where you're rotating a safety down into the box. We didn't see that a lot, if at all. I'd have to, again, see the All-22 to chart that, but it sounds like schematically the Chargers kind of figured out, okay, we're just going to run gap stuff and run it right at you against these light boxes and see if you can get Baker and Van Ginkel. And I think the Chargers were smart to kind of sugar huddle and no huddle at times to keep Van Ginkel on the field. I think as much as we all love Andrew Van Ginkel, that's an experiment that probably needs to be dialed considerably back to get David Long on the field. Again, I think the way Long plays would behoove Jerome Baker in being able to play. I just don't see this inside linebacker move for Van Ginkel working out very well. I just don't. Will be interesting to see what happens against New England on Sunday. We'll preview that game here in a minute. But my 3 players of the game would be on defense. Kader Kohou, thought he really had a nice game. You could probably give big consideration to Javon Holland and some to Jalen Phillips. You know, those guys were pretty good. Offensively, I've got 2, Tyreek and Tua. Tua and Tyreek, however you want to order it. Those 2 are phenomenal. Obviously, Tua winning AFC Offensive Player of the Week speaks for itself. His performance was outstanding, other than the 2 throws I mentioned. And if you're going to get that from this offense week in, week out, this defense will improve. I have faith in that. This could be a very dangerous football team, so long as the health maintains itself. Now, the Patriots, Sunday Night Football in Foxborough. Sounds like Hurricane Lee will be further east than anticipated, so there still might be some rain and some bad weather. Typical New England weather, it sounds like. But a good chance for Miami to showcase themselves in front of a national audience. Hasn't gone especially well the last few times. They did beat the Steelers on Sunday Night Football last year. They lost to Buffalo on the Saturday night game. They lost to the Chargers last year on Sunday night. They lost to the Bengals on Thursday night. Just hasn't really gone well in primetime games. 3 out of the last 4 being losses. I think they can change that narrative this weekend. And looking at the Patriots, their old offensive coordinator under Tom Brady, Bill O'Brien, is back. So that means the Erhardt-Perkins system is back. They had the rotten luck of playing the Eagles in week 1, and they had the even worse luck of their right tackle, Riley Reif, is already on injured reserve, so he's not eligible to come back until week 5. And both of their starting guards, Cole Strange and Michael Onwenu, missed the game against Philly. And they had to play a rookie, Sidney Sal. I forget the other backup guard. Sidney Sal has not practiced yet this week. Trent Brown, their left tackle, is in the concussion protocol, has not practiced this week. Things could be messy for New England's offensive line, which is usually their strong point, no matter who's under center. So it's a banged-up unit, and they didn't really run the ball very well against Philly's front, as you'd kind of expect. They ended up having to pass the ball 54 times. And I believe it was Kyle Krabs on Locked on Dolphins came up with this statistic that more than half of the 54 passes, so at least 28 of them, were within 5 yards on the line of scrimmage, and I think 17 were thrown behind the line of scrimmage. So this is a game where you're going to see guys like Javon Holland and Deshaun Elliott be able to fly up, Kader Kohou, fly up and make tackles at or near the line of scrimmage. Kendrick Bourne is about the only deep threat they have. Devontae Parker did not play in week 1. We'll see about him come game time, but I don't think you really worry much about him. Ramondre Stevenson and Ezekiel Elliott had 19 carries for 54 yards. That's 2.8 yards a carry. So, if Miami's run defense doesn't have a better performance this Sunday night, something's wrong. Something's very wrong if they don't clean up on Sunday night. The defense, however, for New England, always a challenge to figure out, and it's always kind of been a rock fight. Even though Tua is 4-0 against Bill Belichick, you know, the biggest margin of victory is week 1 last year, which was 20-7. But Miami got a defensive score. Brandon Jones had the strip sack. Melvin Ingram recovered it for a touchdown. So the offense only produced 13 points. I expect a little bit more of a rock fight than probably most fans do. I expect this game to be close, just because Bill Belichick is such a good defensive tactician. And they were a nice matchup for Philly. Philly, for whatever reason, has struggled against cover 1 heavy teams. That's what New England kind of lives and breathes in on defense. They held Jalen Hurts to 5.1 yards per attempt, 3 sacks, and they came from a variety of players. You had Matthew Judon, an edge player, Josh Uche, who can play off-ball and edge, and then the rookie corner, Christian Gonzalez, got one. That being said, I think Miami's receiving core is going to have a nice advantage in the secondary. The one player I would watch out for is Kyle Duggar. He lines up all over the place. He can fly up and pop you. He's a big hitter. But you're going to see a lot of concepts we saw from New England last year. A lot of these concepts are concepts that we saw from our own Dolphins when Brian Flores and Josh Boyer were running the defense. So Tua in the offense should be pretty familiar with this scheme. And if the Patriots do decide to live on that razor's edge and play cover 1, I just don't see any corner they have being able to stay with Hill and Waddle. My worry would be is if this game becomes, just kind of a muck and mire game with the rain. Obviously, they don't have grass in New England anymore because the Patriots would never maintain it. That's another story. And this game has to get focused on the trenches and running the ball. While efficient, Miami, in terms of volume, not a whole lot, but you're going to have that when you throw it 45 times in a game, as Tua did last week. So that's a little bit more of the unknown factor. But for me, I think Miami's pass defense will be able to limit the Patriots' passing game and force them to kind of play dink and dunk football. So to me, as long as the running game can, I would say, hold New England to 110 yards on the ground or less, you're probably in good shape to win this game. Weather dependent. But I do think Miami's offensive line is capable of winning a run blocking game against that Patriots front. It is certainly not what it used to be, but still pretty effective. And then it'll be an interesting test, especially if, in the event Teron Armstead cannot go, how the offensive line handles all of the pass rush games and stunts and various blitzes that the Patriots deploy, and the different athletes that they deploy within those blitzes. Jabril Peppers, Kyle Duggar, Matt Judon, Josh Uche, and they have a pretty rock-solid defensive tackle in the middle in Christian Barmore. Kyle Crabb said this on his podcast. I'll echo that. I think he's better as an interior defensive lineman than anyone Miami faced on the Chargers roster a week ago. But if you can get out of Foxborough at 2-0 with a division win in your pocket and a 1 o'clock home game against Denver, I like Miami's chances at a fast start to this season. And there's a very real possibility that if Miami wins, you could see the Dolphins as the only unbeaten team in the AFC come Monday morning. Oh, I guess come Monday night, depending on what happens with the Browns against the Steelers. But that would be something. Even though it's early in the year, that'd be something to kind of hang your hat on and enjoy another Dolphins victory. And we'll kind of leave this with a closing thought, a little bit of a shorter podcast tonight. But for whatever reason, I see Dolphins fans kind of shifting their ire every week. You know, leading up to week 1, it was the Chicken Littles about the offensive line. Now it's the Bradley Chubb can't produce. I would urge you, go back and watch the absolute battle that Bradley Chubb had against Rashawn Slater. And keep in mind that Rashawn Slater is an all-pro left tackle. He's very, very good. Works out with Duke Manyweather and our own Teron Armstead. That's where he's learned a lot of his technique. There are quite a few plays where Bradley Chubb is able to convert speed to power and just absolutely bull rushes Rashawn Slater. But to Rashawn Slater's credit, he has this innate ability to sort of reset and drop anchor. I don't know if it's because he's a shorter tackle at 6'4", but the only tackle in modern NFL, we'll call it since 2000 to present, the only tackles I can recall that have that ability to kind of reset and drop anchor, it's a short list. Walter Jones from Seattle, Trent Williams, who's still playing with the Niners, Joe Thomas with the Browns, and Rashawn Slater. Watch Slater's ability to sort of keep his hands in place, very strong hands, and just reset and drop that anchor to kind of stop Chubb in his tracks. That was an absolute battle between those two. And believe you me, Chubb is going to get his. But that was a rotten matchup for him to have to start off the season with. Rashawn Slater with something to prove. So the closing thought, and I don't know where this will be targeted next because Dolphins fans always have to have a bad guy. You know, maybe it's Jason Sanders for missing the extra point or Devon A-Chain for being a healthy scratch. I don't know. But try and enjoy the process. Try and enjoy the season, you know. The anxiety that a lot of fans have is just, I don't know. I feel like it's misplaced. You know, I get nervous on game day because I'm nervous about the outcome of the game, but my goodness, like, it's football. It's supposed to be fun. Try and enjoy it. And I know I will be Sunday night, primetime game. Got some wings, maybe some beer, hopefully some Lagavulin in order after that. But that's what I'm going to leave you with, Dolphins. I will try and do an episode next Monday night. Because of the Sunday night game, I won't be able to stay up and record that late. So we'll try and do a recap of the Patriots game on Monday night to have that out Tuesday. Again, my apologies for being late with this week. You can blame it on the work week for me. But hopefully it will be better. And then once we're back to 1 p.m. games on Sunday, I will have episodes out Sunday night into Monday. So again, follow me on Twitter, KevinMD4. You can follow the show on iTunes or Spotify or wherever else you listen to your podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of this victory week. It's a victory Thursday, still as I record this. So I'm going to go finish my glass of Lagavulin. I'll give you all a hearty fins up, and we will see you on Sunday night.